to the Politics Show. I'm Councillor Puru with co-host Councillor Andrew Wood. So in this section, we're going to talk about the different ballot papers that people are going to have on the 6th of May. Now, in certain areas, specifically the Isle of Dogs, you're going to have 5 ballot papers. So, Andrew, as the Isle of Dogs falls under your remit, do you want to just explain the 5 different choices people will have to make on the 6th of May? And the 5 different ballot papers?
Yeah, so hopefully they'll be color coded so you can tell that they're different. So the first 3 are to do with the London elections, which are the ones we already planned to have. And obviously they've been delayed for a year. So Mayor Sadiq Khan has had 5 years as mayor rather than the 4 he should have had. So the first and probably the most important of those 3 ballot papers is the election of the Mayor of London. So basically, do you want Sadiq Khan to continue, or do you want somebody else to be the Mayor of London? Relatively straightforward choice, and the polling would suggest that Sadiq Khan is going to win. The second one is for a London Assembly member for City and East. And as a reminder, there's something called the London Assembly. So basically, it's a group of politicians who are a little bit, their role is a little bit similar to councillors, the role that Councillor Puru and I do, but at a London-wide level. And their job is basically, like our job, is to scrutinise the mayor. And this is where it gets complicated. So there are 2 types of assembly members. There are some assembly members who are linked to a geographic area. So City and East, which is where Tower Hamlets is located, has 1 assembly member, and Umesh Desai has been our assembly member for the last 5 years. And obviously he's campaigning to be re-elected. And again, that's a relatively straightforward choice because you're voting for one person or a party. It's the same thing. The third ballot paper is where it gets slightly more complicated for London. Is there are also assembly members who are London-wide, so they're not sort of linked to one part of London. They're London-wide, and that's basically where you vote for a party. So you don't have. So, for example, Andrew Boff, who I really like, a Conservative assembly member, I can't vote directly for Andrew. I have to vote Conservative for the London list in order to get him, but he's third. So basically, each party has 10 candidates for the London-wide list, and if one political party gets all of these votes, then all 10 of those assembly members will come from that one party. But in reality, what happens? It's sort of ranked, and it's kind of based on proportional representation, and we don't have enough time for me to explain what that's all about. So just quickly in summary, there are 3 ballot papers, 1 for the Mayor of London, simple, do you want Sadiq Khan or somebody else? Second one is, do you want Umesh Desai to continue, or do you want somebody else to be our local assembly member? And the third one is for London-wide. And I would make the controversial suggestion that if you're voting for Mayor Sadiq Khan as the mayor, you might want to vote for a different political party on the London-wide list, because that's the best way of making sure there are enough people like myself and other opposition councillors to hold the mayor to account. And if you want a strong and vigorous opposition, then you should be voting for Liberal Democrat or Conservative or Green or some other party for the London-wide list to ensure there's that maximum possible opposition within the Assembly, because the mayor, as discussing in our last segment, obviously has a lot of powers. So those are the 3 ballot papers for London-wide list, and then there are 2 more. One of which is the mayoral referendum, which again we were just been talking about, and the sort of the 5th one I'll just talk about briefly. It only applies on the Isle of Dogs and only for the southern bit, so the bit south of the Blue Bridge or south of West Ferry Circus, and it's for the Isle of Dogs neighbourhood plan. Whether to approve its use or not in planning applications in the future. And I should disclose I'm a member of that neighbourhood planning forum and wrote a lot of the neighbourhood plan, maybe not so much the policies because they were done with residents, but kind of all of the backup and the evidence and the supporting documentation was largely written by me. And what it's basically trying to do is to kind of bring in some more controls over development as related to infrastructure and construction management, and various other things that we're trying to do, but it will take too long to explain all of them. But if you just do a search for Isle of Dogs Neighbourhood Planning Forum, you'll find the website. And basically that ballot paper is very simple. It's a yes or no question. It's basically, yes, do you want to adopt the neighbourhood plan? And I hope you vote yes, or no, it's to reject it, which means that residents, so the whole point of neighbourhood planning forum is it's residents who are writing neighbourhood plans and writing policies which are used in planning applications. So I'll stop there and let Councillor Puru go.
So obviously I'll disagree with Andrew on the London list. So but that's Andrew's opinion. But I'll just put that there as a caveat. But on the neighbourhood plan, Andrew, you need to have a neighbourhood planning forum to have a neighbourhood plan. Is that so? You have a neighbourhood planning forum in place, and now you've created a plan, and that has to be accepted by the residents to be adopted. Is that, and do residents south of the Blue Bridge have they had a copy of the plan, etc.? Have letters gone out, etc.?
Well, so I mean, the leaf again, because the problem of leafleting, the leaflets we've designed, we've shared some of the, what the leaflet designs look like on social media, trying to get people's input. So we have 25,000 leaflets arriving on Thursday. We have 23,000 addresses within the area. So yes, the plan is to leaflet the whole of the area as much as we possibly can, explaining what it's all about. But I guess so in summary, neighbourhood planning forums are basically groups of residents. We have, got a democratic constitution, and we have public meetings and all that kind of stuff. And we've written a neighbourhood plan as residents of the Isle of Dogs. But for that plan to have full weight, basically voters have to vote on that plan. And if they vote yes, then the plan is adopted and it carries the same weight and law as the Tower Hamlets Council local plan. Or if you vote no, it's rejected, which means that the only planning policies used in the Isle of Dogs are those written by the Mayor of London and by the Mayor of Tower Hamlets and their respective teams. So it's the only way you can have weight is through the referendum.
And do you just want to go through the main points, what the difference is between your plan and, say, the Tower Hamlets Council plan, the plan formulated by the Neighbourhood Planning Forum? What are the key differences or benefits to residents?
So from a legal point of view, there are no differences because we're not allowed to contradict existing planning policy. All we can do is add new policies in areas not already covered by the local plan. So, for example, we couldn't have a different affordable housing target because that would be a contradiction. So what we've done is we've added extra weight in some areas. So the big issue we have in the Isle of Dogs is infrastructure to support all of this new development. So one of the things that we ask developers to do is to provide an infrastructure impact assessment that basically lays out the impact of their proposal and all the cumulative proposals on, schools, GP surgeries, parks, playgrounds, swimming pools, grocery stores as well, because they're also important infrastructure. So second sets of policies to do with construction management, because it's very poor currently, and we know the council are working on this as well to try and improve this. So there are some rules in there about informing people if there's going to be work done out of hours, because normally the first time people realise that a site has got permission to work out of hours is when on a Saturday afternoon they see work continuing. There are policies about trying to make or encourage developments to be as sustainable as possible. We have a real problem with empty sites in the Isle of Dogs where developers start work and then finish or go bankrupt or don't continue. So we have this kind of empty and derelict sites. So the old McDonald's site by Preston's Roundabout is a good example of that. Just, tumbleweed and, trees growing on that site. So what we want developers is to have a plan B, that if they can't go forward, that land is used for some social purpose and something useful rather than just being abandoned. And the last one is to do 3D models. We're a big fan of 3D models, which we talked about last week in terms of the 3D model the council are working on. So like a CGI computer generated image of what Tower Hamlets might look like using this new model. And the last one is kind of further encouragement that if there is an estate regeneration, that there is a ballot in that process. And that was quite a difficult policy to write because, again, laws limit what we can do. But there is a policy to further encourage housing associations to hold a ballot before they knock down people's homes.
What about in terms of trees? I know that's become an issue on the Isle of Dogs with trees being felled in marsh wall, etc. Is there some kind of emphasis on protecting trees? Because that seems like becoming a debate, not just in Tower Hamlets, but all over London now, about felling of old trees, etc.
Yeah, we had a couple of other policies. We had an air quality policy, which was actually, because we had some technical difficulties, we actually copied another neighbourhood policies from Kensington. And this neighbourhood plan had basically spent like £100,000 in their policies. So we thought they were like the best policies. So we actually copied their policies, obviously rewrote sections to make sure it was Isle of Dogs compliant. But the other thing that happens is there's an independent examiner who inspects our policies and says whether or not they're compliant or not. And he's have said, and we disagree with him, but he's ultimately his ruling, he disagreed that our air quality policy could carry any weight. So it's a recommendation. It's not an actual policy and a plan. There is other ways of dealing with this issue in neighbourhood plans. So our plan was always to write this. We'd hoped a quick neighbourhood plan. It didn't work out that way because of various problems with the GLA. But what we're going to do after this, if the vote is yes, is we're going to write a new neighbourhood plan, which takes the existing neighbourhood plan and then adds more protections for heritage and green assets and the design code as well. So this is kind of the start of a process, not the sort of the end of it, hopefully.
Cool. Well, if people want to find out more about this neighborhood plan or the ballot, is there anywhere they could go? Is there like a website or is there a Facebook page?
Yeah, so we've got Facebook and Twitter. So if you just Google Isle of Dogs neighborhood plan or neighborhood planning forum, you'll find lots of content. Again, we've had articles in local newspapers. We've done presentations, to architects and developers in forums. So hopefully you'll find quite a history of what we've been doing since we were, approved by the council back in 2016.
Cool. So, so guys, if you want more information, if you're living on the Isle of Dogs, you're going to have 5 ballot papers, while the rest of us are going to have 4. So if you want more information, you could go there. But we're going to go straight to a break. After the break, we're going to do a bit of a roundup and possibly some Q&A. So roundup as to some of the issues we talked about in the last show, like the call-ins, and what's happened, and give you the latest as to the cabinet. Some interesting things happened at the cabinet as well. So join us after the break. So we're going to go to a break. Just waiting for our producer to take us to a break. If not, we could carry on. Andrew, welcome back to the Politics Show. I'm Councillor Puru with co-host Councillor Andrew Wood. So we're just going to do a bit of a roundup, focusing on the last Wednesday's cabinet meeting. So I know, Andrew, you watched some of it, and then we had to go on to the Liverpool Streets Tribunal. But what was your take on the mayor not taking? So there was a call in on the closure of the day opportunity centres, asking the mayor to reconsider that, and you were part of overview and scrutiny committee on that. But on Wednesday, the mayor decided to stick with his decision, or were there any variations, etc.? What's your take on that? Because they said that they were going to write to overview and scrutiny. So, Andrew, you just want to give us a roundup on that?
Yeah, so what happened is 5 councillors called in the decision to close the daycare centres and to make some other changes, and they sort of presented some alternative options. That then went to Overview and Scrutiny Committee, where members could ask questions both of the 5 councillors who'd made the submission, as well as officers, and Councillor Rachel Blake, the responsible cabinet member, was also at that meeting. And at the end of that meeting, on a unanimous basis, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee members accepted the call-in and sort of agreed with their arguments, and made the recommendation back to the mayor that he should reconsider his original decision to close them and make all of the changes that they wanted to make. And the kind of the answer sort of back in cabinet was thanks, but no thanks. We're going to continue with the process as planned. But what will then happen is that the mayor will then have to write back to Overview and Scrutiny, kind of explaining the reasons kind of why. And it is a reminder that you know, most call-ins do fail, because as we were just talking about in our first section, you know, basically the mayor has all of the political power, so it's basically up to him to decide whether he wants to change or not. There's no way for us councillors to force him to change. All we can do is ask him to think again, which is what we did, and obviously that opportunity was rejected. I'm not saying call-ins have no impact whatsoever, because I think sometimes, you know, they can change a detail, and occasionally, you know, they do have their successes as well, so they are worth kind of doing, and also a good way of raising issues and concerns as well.
Well, the highlight for me on cabinet was the BAME inequalities report, because you and I did a show on it, and we had someone who participated on that. So they, you know, it was obviously my views. I expressed what my views were on that, but it was interesting that there seems to be a cross-party consensus that the report did not meet its stated aims. So at that meeting, you had Councillor Huck from Labour expressing his concerns. You had Councillor Gold, a Conservative, expressing his concerns, and you had Councillor Khan, Rubina Khan, expressing her concerns. What would you take on that, Andrew? I know you watched that.
So I guess, you know, my main concern is, you know, when you read the report, you know, it's 54 pages, 29 sort of recommendations in total. So on the surface, it looks extremely impressive, and clearly a lot of work had been done, and I'm not denying that at all. But the problem with Tower Hamlets is it's just littered with previous reports about we're going to do something. And this is a particular, you know, huge issue, but even on the smaller stuff, there are reports which, you know, nothing ever happens with them. So my fundamental concern about this report is what happens to it. What are the next steps? So as Overview and Scrutiny, I can ask some questions. I asked some questions about what the budget was for, you know, implementation, how this is going to be implemented. And I had some kind of responses back, which weren't terrible. I mean, they weren't bad responses. But my concern, and I think most people's concern, is still what happens 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now, because the last report we did like this was the Brexit Commission report. Again, a lot of work, and we just don't talk about it anymore, even though Brexit actually happened. And there's almost no reference today to all of the work that was done on the Brexit Commission. And I think that's my concern with this report, is that in 12 months' time we'll be, oh yeah, I remember what happened to that report. And I think that's really the key issue, is what is the next steps on this, and how does it get delivered? And I think that's one of my concerns about the 29 recommendations. There are too many of them, I think. I mean, they're all perfectly valid and worthy, but if you really want to make change, you probably need to focus on, you know, 5 or 10 things that, you know, you can really do.
No, that's It'd be interesting. Obviously, there's a lot of rumbling on it. It'll be interesting to see how this develops. Looking forward, is there anything interesting coming up? I know we're into PERDA now, and it was interesting, the monitoring officer reminding everyone that we're not allowed to use our platforms as councillors for express political electioneering.
Mm-hmm.
But is there anything interesting coming up? Any major decisions before we go into election season? We see in the horizon, say in April?
No, so I mean, there's not that many council. One of the good things about elections is they tend to sort of move council meetings around to avoid the period. So the last 2 weeks have been lots and lots of council meetings, so I'm quite a bit zoned out from all of them. And there's nothing sort of, there's always major things happening. The school closures happening in the east of the borough. So, it's never a quiet moment. But I think probably one of the critical issues, and I don't think people have thought enough about this, when we have the referendum result for the mayor or for leader in cabinet, actually there's a lot of work will then need to be done over the next year. So if the mayoral model wins, then probably not much change, except I can see an argument then. So all of the people who are then proposing leader in cabinet may then want to change the mayoral system before May 2022. Whereas the people, if the leader in cabinet model actually wins, there's a lot of unanswered questions about actually how that model works. And there are different hybrid models as to how it could work. So a classic example would be how do cabinet members make decisions? Is it collectively? Is it for their own individual department? Is it whipped? How does that kind of work in a leader in cabinet model? And we can't go back to what we did in 2010, because I've been told the rules and laws have changed to such an extent that we almost have to start again. So actually one of the big pieces of work in the coming year would be, if the leader in cabinet system wins, is actually how does that work in practice?
I think it'll have an impact on scrutiny as well. Just looking at scrutiny in leader and cabinet, so like councils, you have much more thematic. Instead of having one overall one, they have sort of like different kind of scrutiny committees. But again, the details have not been thought out. But it'd be interesting. I think the campaign is hotting up. It is getting heated, and we might get both campaigns to go head to head with me and you as referees. But what's your take on? It's sort of like an outside observer. What's your take on the campaigns? They seem, to be honest, it seems like two retired boxers fighting it out. It's sort of like it's one of those kind of. So
I've sort of said in public that I haven't picked a side, because actually I haven't decided how I'm going to vote myself. I'm sort of thinking about kind of voting and then scribbling on the bottom of the paper, committee system, like the American system, American system, where basically like it's called a write-in. Yeah. Basically, you write on the ballot paper what you actually really want. So I might suggest that to people as an alternative. As long as your cross is clear, if you write somewhere at the bottom, it's not a spoilt ballot paper. But it'd be quite fun to kind of see how many of those that there are. But one of the things I've seen is that there's a lot of misunderstanding about how leader in cabinet works, and people think it's a more perfect system than it really is. And as John said, none of these systems are perfect. And I don't think people have realized the problems with the leader in cabinet model. And there was a reason back in 2010 why, only 40% of voters supported that model back in 2010. So I think a lot of the work over the next month will be reminding people, there are imperfections in all of these models and not to oversell them. But I mean, the last point is, if we do go for leader in cabinet, there is actually some really good news, which is that we might need more councillors, more people like Councillor Miah and I, because we used to have 50 councillors in Tower Hamlets. And then we went to the mayoral system. The argument was we don't need that many councillors anymore. So we lost 5 councillors. And John was saying they've got 60 councillors in Newham, but actually the populations now are about the same. So we could add, 15 more councillors in town hamlets. I don't think
Yeah.
we need that many, but that would be one of the other consequences of this is, do we need to do a boundary commission review and have some more councillors if we do go for leader in cabinet? So I think there's a whole wide range of issues I don't think people have thought through yet.
No, definitely. I think we need to put the information out. It seems to be a lot of misinformation out there. Like it seems like everything's blamed on the mayor, kind of ish. Even the council tax rise. So someone made the point, hang on a minute, don't you councillors vote that through the budget? Like, why is everything the mayor's decision? Yeah. So it seems like there needs to be some kind of platform or information where the information is there and people can make an informed decision. At the moment, it seems like informed information is not being sent there. But we're going to come to the end of the show. We're not going to do a show next Friday. It's Good Friday, and both of us need a holiday, and I think we all need a holiday, kind of ish. So Good Friday, we're not going to do a show, but the Friday after, there's a possibility of us holding a debate. So me and Andrew are going to go away and see if we could put a debate together of yes to mayor, no to mayor, or yes to leader cabinet, or no to leader cabinet, however you want to do it. And we might make it interesting in the sense of have John from Newham to come along and talk about the committee system. So even though the options are not there, for example, people can make an informed choice as to which system is nearer to the system that they would prefer in an ideal world. So Andrew and I will just go away and mill it over. So we've got 2 weeks to put it together, Andrew, and see if we can do it. But it'll be interesting. I think a lot of people have been asking me personally to put it together because there seems to be a lot of confusion. But thank you again for watching the show. So thank you for joining us on your Friday evening. Next Friday, we're not going to be with you, but the Friday afterwards, we'll be there. Friday, 7 p.m., the Politics Show with myself, Councillor Puru, and co-host Councillor Underwood. But thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you. Great. Bye.